Good evening, welcome everyone. My name is Nancy Yao, I'm your host for tonight, and this is Afro Vibes. I think it's the 17th time that Afro Vibes is in town, several towns actually, and welcome for people at home. We luckily also have a live audience here at the Balie, where now Afro Vibes will be for 3 days to have a wonderful program. And the theme of this Afro Vibes is entanglements. And we're going to unpack what entanglements means to all of us when we talk about these things. So, why entanglements? Well, in times where individualism and nationalism both flourish but also clash and collide, the Afro Vibes team thought it would be really important to actually talk about this notion of entanglement. Why? It's also, it's quite obvious. We're in a very COVID situation still all around the world, basically. And by the way, in the Netherlands, we're not doing very well in terms of how we are dealing with COVID. So people feel very isolated, economically, physically, but also emotionally. So it's actually really, really important for all of us to keep connecting. And what does that mean? How do we connect? Are we still capable of doing that? Or are we actually becoming more innovative and handy in becoming more connected to each other? Do you actually now know the name of your neighbor who, lives next door, who you didn't speak for the last 10 years or something like that? Well, we have a big program with us, and I'm very excited about the program for tonight. We have some wonderful speakers, both online and also here in the room. And we're going to start with a film by Nora Chipaumire. She's an internationally celebrated Zimbabwean choreographer and performer living in New York. Nora will also join us after we watch her short film. She will join us in the panel. The panel itself will be around 45 minutes after we watch Nora's short film. We have Jerry Afriyie, Jeffrey van der Ven, and Chipaumire, of course, with us in the panel. And we'll have also singer-songwriter Eve Skeet-McLeod with us. We'll finally, at the finish, we'll have 2 short films. Again, I'll talk about them later, but first of all, I would like to start with the film by Nora. And by the way, Nora's film is actually also still followed first by a talk by Chipaumire, who's obviously an important name for the whole festival, the artistic director of Afro Vibes. Well, another Township Manifesto. That's the title of a short film by Nora Chipaumire. The film was created specifically for the worldwide digital platform in response to our current world, where Black artists are finding innovative ways to continue to address the politics of Black bodies and connect to their audience. So let's watch together Nora's film and talk with her afterwards.
This is not shade.
This is not shade. This is not shade.
Someone has to say this. How many times should Black woman sing praises to her dead Black brothers?
How
How many times should black woman sing praises to her dead black brothers?
How many times should a black woman sing praises to her dead black brothers?
How many times should black woman sing praises to her dead black brothers? Never speak ill of the dead. Never, 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 never. Never speak ill of the dead. Never, 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 never. Gesture, straight into camera. 1968. Black images must keep rolling, overlaid with voiceover. Riot, 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 rebel, rebel, rise, rise. No is the word for 1960.
Sing.
Fire is a waiter, burning all my people. There was fire in Angola, burning all my people. Riot in Mozambique, affecting all my people. Fighting in Namibia, crushing all my people. A shooting in Soweto, hey, a killing all my people. Rebel in Zimbabwe, 1 hour mile. Yeah, you can do that. Yeah, you can do that. 1 hour mile. Sichanjineta, amaivafa, amavafa. Sinu sichanjineta, amaivafa. Iwe. Sa, bazuku. Bozi alivurwa muna mama baterere.
On camera face, leave. You leave, left, gone, left, gone. 1968. I am 3 years old, Mapurazi. 1968. I am 3 years old, a village Picanini.
Aizai vakuru vatuonewo. Maono zvaita mushawa baba. Aizai vakuru vatuonewo iwe. Maono zvaita mushawa baba iwe. Mwene mwiri nashumba inoruma vakomana. Ndoita mutekateka ndela nechitima.
This is not the first time you leave. Left, gone, brother. Western Cape, Johannesburg, London, New York City, Earth. You always leave. A native at large. I have loved justice and hated iniquity. Therefore, I die in exile.
I have loved justice and hated iniquity, and therefore I die in exile. I have loved justice and hated iniquity, and therefore I choose to die in exile. I have loved justice and hated iniquity, and therefore I choose to die in exile.
Gesture, 1968. Life is good. Life is good. Scout's honor, cross my heart and hope to die. Life is good. Voice on black screen. You.
Life is good. Life is good. Life is good. Life is good. Scout's honor, be prepared. Cross my heart, hope to die. Life is good. 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 Scout's honor. Scout's honor. Life is good. 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 Scout.
You are not alone, brother. Miriam, Hugh, Abdullah, Janchis. Drum roll for the persona non gratas. Gesture on camera. Life is good. Scout's honor, cross my heart and hope to die. Life is good. Play the music. Ladysmith Black Mambazo and Paul Simon. Play the music. Play the music. Face on camera. We need always a little help from white saviors. Play. Sound diamonds on the soles of her shoes. Natives at large. Body, flesh, work, labor, race, none, human, not. Brother, life is good. Colonial aphasia, colonial debris, that's what you is, brother. Life is good. VJ, archival footage of riot people in the streets, running, 1968. On camera, gesture, running, 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 running. Voice on camera.
Run, Cook, you better run, you better run, Cook, you better run, Kaffa, you better run, Babu, you better run, Wallies, Walls, Tony, Antos, Kaffers, Africans, you better run, children, revolution of trauma, of children of violence, I am the child of violence, of war, of trauma, of revolution, British South African company, Dutch East India company, hallelujah, chicken run bad, better run, better run, better run, better run, better run, better run.
Nancy Benenkun, Ijigalas Gazi Punaton, Ubalasi Nancy Kisima, Apumamo, Maleka, Bongabatu, Nancy Benenkun. Kapa Sozungela, Hamba Lonsokolo, Hamba, Natsokolo Kuli, Kuyayu Kapa.
Dances for you? Who dances for you? Who dances for you? Who dances for you? Who dances for you? Voice on camera. Who sings for woman? Left behind, black woman. Who shall sing your praises, sister? You, living dead, forgotten. Left behind, black woman, African woman, mother. Who sings for you? Who sings for you? Who dances for you? This is not shade, brother. On camera, face.
You
took
your shit and left.
You took
You took your shit and left. 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 You took your shit and left.
Wow, very powerful work from Nora Chipaumire. Luckily, we can churn a little bit on what we just saw. And while we do that, we can now also listen to Jay Pather, who is coming on screen, I think, in a minute. So I want to introduce to you our keynote speaker for tonight, the wonderful artistic director of this even more wonderful festival, Afro Vibes. And Jay is, of course, not with us live. He's in South Africa. We're all maintaining all these COVID rules. And he will give us his keynote speech right now, after which we will go to a panel discussion. So the floor is for you, Jay Pather.
Good evening, and a sincere thank you to Balie for hosting these Afro Vibes events. My name is Jay Pather. In my opening address, I omitted to mention also three outstanding people responsible for holding Afro Vibes together, and I want to correct that and sincerely acknowledge them. They are the untiring Bob Menches, who basically holds the festival together, Afro Vibes producer Hans Lebui, and our amazing production manager, Bing Le. So thank you all very much. My address this evening is entitled Entanglements, Three Blind Spots, and if you give me a moment, I'll just share my screen with you quickly. And just to recall a statement I made in my opening address, entanglements refers to a connectivity and an intersection amongst seemingly disparate, torn apart humans and ideas. I also want to recall the South African theorist Sarah Nuttall, who wrote, entanglement is a condition of being twisted together or entwined, involved with. It speaks of an intimacy gained, even if it was resisted or ignored or uninvited. It is a term which may gesture towards a relationship or set of social relationships that is complicated, ensnaring, in a tangle, but which also implies a human foldedness. So to bring us to an image that will help us, it is this foldedness, the undeniable connectedness amongst the disparate and the far-flung that defines the human condition. Our lives are folded in with each other in some way, and when we factor in intersections and exchanges of cultures, destruction and resurgence of languages, ethics, nations, most importantly, a fraught but pervasive global economy and currency control, our sense of entanglement then gets more complex and dense. Of course, if entanglement was widely acknowledged and the world behaved as if it was one entangled, beautiful, complicated mess, we will not be foregrounding this as a theme. It would be commonplace and normal. Instead, our political lives incessantly and regularly emphasize difference and borders, whether they are material ones or conceptual mental borders about human beings. Our politicians and dominant cultural institutions often look away from this entangled, intersecting life and replace the narrative as if we lead singular, separate lives, insular, shut off from the rest of the world. In this way, one supposes the narrative, as is the population, easier to control. The growth of nationalism in our society is very often aided and abetted by world leaders is testament to this. Donald Trump, when he told a group of right-wing nationalists at no less than a presidential debate to stand back and stand by, spoke volumes to the persistent peddling of a nationalist, insular notion of the world. His sense of COVID-19, also as the China virus, is a further case in point. No matter what you may call it, if you don't come to terms with the fact that we are entangled, then you're less likely to deal with the complexity and danger of such a virus. When I name something foreign, I'm more likely to be reckless, blaming, and not take responsibility as I shift it elsewhere, not accepting that our borders, as this virus has shown us tragically, are indeed porous. It speaks to a kind of blindness or myopia. So my title, Entanglements and Three Blind Spots, then also refers another lens to look at this, that of the blind spot. The blind spot may be defined as an obscuration of the visual field caused by the lack of light-detecting photoreceptor cells in the retina. Because there are no cells to detect light, the corresponding part of the field of vision is invisible. Blind Spot was also the name of the production I did in Copenhagen for the Metropolis Biennale. In this research period, I was invited to scour the city, and I thought, let me bring this in as a testament to a kind of a blind spot and an entanglement that I was exploring then. I was invited to scour the city, trawl its buildings, its rooftops, concrete, oval, and over water to come to grips with this lush city of Copenhagen. But in the midst of all of this grandeur and walking through Strøget in the city centre, I came upon a board advertising a restaurant. It stood upright in the middle of nowhere, and then I saw an actual person holding it up, a man who wanted to bring no attention to himself, to be invisible. Who was this man? Where did he live? It was a man of colour, different to the swirling crowds around him, and as a result, suddenly quite visible, because on further probing, I saw how absent people of colour were in the centre of the city, relegated as they were to the peripheries. And increasingly, of course, this is so throughout the world. A great example is the city of New York, or Cape Town even, where topography and a systemic gentrification renders invisible any kind of entanglement. I think it is useful here to consider then the words of Michel, the subject, who wrote, "Contemporary urban space is a convergence of two paradigms, leprosy and the plague. The paradigm of leprosy is based on exclusion. It requires that lepers were placed outside the city. The model of the plague gives rise to another. When the city is plagued, it is a case of creating a model of surveillance. The plague victim is encased, monitored, controlled, and cured through a complex web of mechanisms that articulates the efficiency of control and of power. Contemporary urban space is a convergence of both, and it's interesting that we're talking about the plague in this time of COVID as a metaphor for the city. But then with these ideas, Blind Spot evolved as a production, and it evolved as a form of a city walk. I thought about it as busing a whole bunch of people, or the patrons of Metropolis Biennale, to a suburb, to a settlement actually called Nora, and from on the one end of a road called Nora Gill. I worked with the native and migrant Danish dancers, and audiences were bussed in to Nora, and I had to walk all the way back into the city, witnessing 35 performances along the way. It was a 4-hour production and a 3-kilometer walk.
the first of the generations, and then came the Chinese. Came my generations.
Of the university at the start of this final section, it marks symbolically a rewriting of text. The more this language remains homogeneous and hermetically sealed, was my point, the more elusive the promise of this hybrid dynamic metropolis. Originally meant for 40 people, the audience that had gathered from all the way from Nobreville by the time we got to the university had swelled to about 300. It was really fascinating, this illusory moment and temporary moment of an entanglement in spite of these blind spots. So when it comes to this notion of entanglement, the blind spot is useful because it refers to the hidden out of vision snarl-ups that we encounter in admitting or owning up or recognizing that we are in some shape or form entangled. And so to name 3 blind spots of our time, I want to look at coloniality, climate, and COVID-19. In coloniality, together with the current resurgence of virulent nationalism and religious fundamentalism, has been ironically an increase in geopolitical war and territorial genocide that has gone on to result in displacement of thousands of humans. Migration and nationalism then, over time, are both part of an entanglement. The blind spot is the response which encompasses the willful erasure of memory around coloniality, as if the past is entirely an illusion and all that matters is the present. Rolando Vasquez theorizes this and talks of the centrality of erasure, especially of the previously colonized, to advance the project of modernity, which he rightly proposes as a project of colonialism. In modernity, there is only now advanced by the notion of existential truth, right? So there's this insistence of a kind of linearity, and the now has been imposed by Western modernity on colonized countries, imposing the imperative to forget the past, and thereby missing the potential for a deeply felt, deeply experienced global entanglement of past, present, and future. And Achille Mbembe says this well: time is not a series, but an interlocking of presents, pasts, and futures that retain their depths of other past, presents, and futures, each age bearing, altering, and maintaining the previous ones. To focus on the time of entanglement, then, is to repudiate not only linear models, but the ignorance they maintain and the extremism to which they have repeatedly given rise. To go on to blind spot 2, we're all implicated in the age of the Anthropocene, and I just want to show you a short trailer of the film Kifaro, which brings this home.
Sudan, good boy. Sudan. Good boy, Sudan.
Wewe umekuwa mzee. Sasa unaona kati Sudan anaanguka.
I mean, you can never be comfortable losing something that you love.
Happy birthday to you.
Sudan provides basic needs through what we earn, taking care of them.
Kwa kizazi cha vifaru wanaojulikana kama Northern White Rhinos, waliosalia watatu pekee ulimwenguni.
The more he grows old, the more to worry.
these rhinos would be instantly killed without 24/7 protection. It is a burden given to us by the world
to save what another man has destroyed.
We are the last men to walk with these animals.
I find it incredibly moving that the intimacy with which this vast catastrophic moment is being talked about, and the implications of the world feeling this moment, even though it is happening in such a remote space. And I want to then use that to segue into the blind spot 3, which is the COVID-19 idea. And I've said elsewhere, and to repeat, sometimes entanglement emerges in this terrifying and devastating way, such as the introduction of COVID-19. No society is being left unaffected. No one can claim immunity, no matter how sophisticated the society or how vulnerable. We're all being implicated and will feel the effect in some way or the other. In a search for solutions, we're also entangled, because even in moments of enforced physical isolation to keep us safe, there is a need for community, for coming together to observe the isolation, knowing that a simple individual action can implicate hundreds of others, knowing how interconnected we are. And I want to go back to Sarah Nuttall, who writes, "Entanglement offers for me a rubric of which we can meet the challenges of the after-apartheid. It is a means by which to draw into our analyses those sites in which what we once thought of as separate identities, spaces, histories come together or find points of intersection in unexpected ways, wrought from a common, though often coercive and confrontational experience. It is an idea which signals largely unexplored terrains of mutuality." Our histories are messy ones. Why continue to lazily peddle the monochromatic purity of ivory tower princes and princesses who cut off from the richness and realities of entanglement? In this year's Afro Vibes, we see these spaces of mutuality, entanglement in a range of global issues, past and present, race and class in the sites of memory production, of gender in Nora Chipaumire's amazing Another Township Manifesto, of home space and foreign space in I Listen, You See, of time and generations in A Faint Touch of Light, of entanglement in the time of COVID between our material and our spiritual lives, our bodies and healing, in the work of Jelili Atiku. I trust that these few thoughts that I've shared with you in these productions in the festival may offer hope for a saner conversation around entanglement and our blind spots as we confront, experience, and heal from the major catastrophes of our time. Thank you so very much.
Thank you so much, Jay Pather, for that very rich and deep keynote, which provides us with a lot of material to speak of. Hey, Jay, can you see us? So nice to see your face. And it's good to see you. All the way from... Where are you based, actually? Cape Town or Joburg?
Cape Town,
or,
yes.
Yeah.
I'm in Cape Town now.
All right. Lovely to see you again. And here's Nora as well from New York City, I think. Hi, Nora.
Hello. Hi, everybody. Hi, world.
So right now we're connecting 3 continents. The Americas, Africa, and Europe, Amsterdam, Cape Town, and New York City. And it's not by chance that both the cities that you're located in used to be Dutch colonies, right? New York City used to be New Amsterdam. for instance, right? Side note there, but lovely to see you both. We're going to do a hybrid conversation with two guests who are also here in the room. So I want to ask them both to come forward, please, and please take a chair. Jeffrey van der Ven and Jerry Afriyie, please. Welcome also to them. Yes. Lovely. Hi. Welcome. We're running a little bit late, but I'm still going to, try for like a 40-minute discussion, if that's okay with everyone in the room. How are the men at the table? First of all, are we healthy and happy?
Yes and yes.
Oh, good. I'm so happy to hear that. How about you, Jerry?
Yes and almost.
Okay. And thank you, I have to say also thank you to you for stepping in so last minute, because actually Bright Richards was supposed to be at the table, which I was personally looking forward to because we've known each other for a long time. He's Utrecht based, but he fell ill. But I'm actually even more happy to then meet you, because you're, for me, a new face. So I'm really curious also to hear a lot about you. I've only heard very positive stories about you. So very excited to meet you both. And Jerry and I know each other for quite some time now.
Yeah,
we've been
we're family.
Almost family, indeed. But I want to go back first to Nora. Thank you, first of all, for your work that we just saw. Sometimes it's just like you need some time to reflect on what you just saw. For sure, that in my case, that's definitely the case. But what was it that you felt you needed to say with your short film just now? If you will, Nora.
Oh, my God, that's a loaded question.
I know.
I wanted to say everything that Black African women don't get to say out publicly, what's in their hearts, their anger, their resentment, and also at this moment, being on this side of New Amsterdam, as you said, the endless continual death of ourselves and Black men, just the position of the woman in relationship to the history of annihilation. And then you couple that with COVID-19. So I was at my most desperate best, upset, and also unable to have any work, seeing as we are all stuck at home. So I was interested in addressing the anger, but particularly that of African women, African Black women, at the kind of way we are outside of the frame.
Right. Yeah. Beautiful. And thank you for explaining that to us. And I think it's so important to show anger. And I think it was, for a lot of us, maybe Audre Lorde was an important teacher in that sense, in teaching us that Audre Lorde, the poet, the feminist, and the warrior poet, as
of course, yes, you cannot destroy the master's house using the master's tools.
Right, exactly.
However, I do think at some point, I don't actually agree with Audre Lorde, but I agree with you that she is important, vital, But I would also probably want to conjure up, Winnie Mandela, and all sorts of other women who don't make it as into the books as poetry, but their kind of resistance and the ability, yes, to destroy the master's house with the master's tools. And in this case, this medium of image and, cyborgs and cybernetics and digital space, which, one would want to say we don't belong, as animists. But however, here we are.
And I think I agree with you, but I actually also wanted to connect rather to Audrey's other point. She's made many, of course, but
made many.
That anger is actually very productive, right? And I think that's what I wanted to give back to you, that the productivity of your anger we just saw. So thank you for that, and I appreciate it. And so Jay Pather, how are you doing, by the way? How are things back in Cape Town?
Oh, I'm doing. We've gone through a slight dip in our stats. So things are a lot more fluid. We're on level 1, but there is a sense of trepidation that we will have a second wave. But
definitely,
we're all right for now.
Definitely. And so thank you so much for your rich keynote. Mbembe, Foucault, they all came around. But I was really interested and also struck by this notion of entanglement in the face of thinking and talking about that in a post-apartheid type of situation. It kind of hit home in a deep way for me. Like, yes, of course you would embrace a notion like entanglement because it's kind of vital for our existence and our coexistence to reach out. So that's how it rang to me in a way. But and Jerry, I see you nodding because.
Yeah, I think it really hit home because some of the time when you are being oppressed for so long, you cannot deny that eventually a part of what for you feels naturally will also be something, the mutuality with the oppressor. So I do think that you kind of take over some of the oppressors and ways, and also as we see children get born out of it and everything. So it's like, it's not only a shared history, it's like you share something that will forever be. You can never really rewrite the history. And I think that with the message, that's what I got of it, like, okay, we can never actually leave behind the marks of apartheid, because it's forever going to be part of the society. Therefore, we forever gonna have the mutuality. Some of it we might like, some of it we might definitely dislike.
Right. How's that for you, Jeffrey? How does it resonate for you?
I think mostly the use of the word history resonates a lot, because I think the moment you drop the word history, people think it's the past. But I think what you very accurately point out is that it creates a present. It's what comes out of it that we live in right now. It may have been born, I'm not going to say yesterday, but a while back, but it happens right now. It's still very much the present. So yeah, it's very, very recognizable.
Yeah, and I guess in all four of you in your work, that resonates very deeply, right? And how the past is not the past, it's actually the present, right? I mean...
I always say that we didn't make the past, but the past made us. And at the same time, and we didn't have a choice of what happened in the past, but I do think that the future ahead, we cannot blame the past for it, because we can create a new future together. So I always look at our own responsibility for the future ahead, and if you don't take that responsibility, then you are going to look back 60 years from now, and then you're going to say, you'll be like, yeah, they didn't fix it. But I feel like, every day when you wake up, and you can open your eyes and you can see the world, I think you get a new chance to fulfill that promise that wasn't done already.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely.
But
This is, please, Jay.
Just to be, I think that one thing that we do have to be quite careful about is that we don't mix it with the kind of rainbow kind of reaching out, which predominated South Africa from in the early 90s in Nelson Mandela and, to a large extent, Desmond Tutu's desire to create these bridges, right? So we're not, that's not the kind of entanglement that we're talking about at this point, because that level of liberal politics and neoliberal economy politics that influence those decisions have resulted in a great deal of trauma and a great deal of pain because of so much that remains unresolved. So we must, I guess, I'm just trying to caution against that kind of an entanglement. I think Nora does this a lot in her work. Sorry for speaking to your work, Nora, in your presence, but in another Township Manifesto, she's referring to Demilofeni, who was considered or is considered an extremely prolific, very powerfully socially and politically placed artist. But that these elements of ourselves are awkward, but they need to be also approached with a great deal of criticality, so that we, like Nora is saying, I don't mean to throw any shade. In the same instance, we're not throwing shade on whiteness or whatever that is. It's just that there is an entanglement that forces us to also be deeply critical.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Reaching out to the more complicated, difficult entanglements that we've not spoken of, actually. Yeah? In the Netherlands, that is actually whiteness. Whiteness is the unspoken sort of norm that needed to be unpacked a little bit more than what we were used to or comfortable with, even. So in that sense, I think, it definitely resonates what you're saying.
But at the same time, if I may jump in and kind of piggyback on what you all are talking about, I think it's beyond just exploring or unpacking whiteness. It's really what's urgent is understanding Blackness. Yeah, we need to understand how that is entangled in everything. It's too sometimes easy to kind of look across and just see how we are, of course, entangled with. We have been entangled with Europe since Europe discovered Africa. From then on, we've been drifting down to the end of the world as we know it together. However, I think as a colonial being, which I have to say I still am, because we haven't decolonized anything, the systematic oppression is in my blood. But what we don't often discuss and bring to the table is our own Blackness, is our own Africanness. Like, how entangled are we to that? And if we can figure out how to unpack that space, I think then we have the tools to deal with whiteness and maybe get into survival mode, because what we need to do is survive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so I think that's a great point, but could you, for us, maybe also give an example of how that works out for you currently, what it means to the important politics of talking about what Blackness means, because from a European perspective, I think we can weigh in a minute for sure, but you being located in the place where you are, what does that mean?
Well, I'm located in the world.
Sure.
I'm located in the world. I may be in Brooklyn, New York, which has its own specificity of Americanness. But however, I am Zimbabwean born and raised, and I cannot separate that and just speak about being in America. So I carry my Africanness, and that is who I am wherever I am. However, the fact of being Black isn't necessarily different in America as it is in Africa or in Asia or in Europe. I think, if we're kind of riding on this thought process of the Afro-pessimists, that, the thing is the continued annihilation of Black. Really, we need to step back from separating the American, the European, the African. We are all going the same direction. Black is Black, so it doesn't really matter where you are. And it would behoove us to think of ourselves as one large unit across different continents. Of course, there are specificities. However, of course, America is very particular, and salute to African Americans who dare to lead the way in terms of speaking up. And especially the young people, taking the responsibility to be in the trenches again, where older people may be a little bit exhausted. So just bringing the conversation, into kind of this space, into the now, and keeping it into the now. I don't know what else I can say. To be Black is to be always in this constant space of confronting and deciding to live with all these contradictions.
Okay, please, both of you weigh in. Jerry.
I just want to say that in the eyes of whiteness, there's only one Black.
Exactly.
But when it comes to Blacks amongst each other, we do know that we have so many entanglements, that we have to deal with. So therefore, for me, I think that it's also important for us to also fight for to be the diverse human beings that we are. I do know that I was born in Ghana, and I do know that just a country across, even within Ghana, there's so many differences and everything. And I do think that fighting for, I think that Black people, what we share is the struggle in many ways that bring us together. But at the same time, I think that we are not only our skin color, even though for the outside world, that's what they see us and try to portray us. But I think that for us to be really free and unpacking the Blackness, I think that we should be really be free in a way that we can be all that makes us. And we're talking about intersectionality and everything that comes with it. So for me, myself, I look at it different. Like in the struggle, I do know that we need to have like one, one front. We need to be like together and trying to find each other, and because we're going through the same, in a way, maybe differently, but we're going through the kind of same struggles, because whether it's colonialism is in Africa, we are still seeing it here, People tell me we need to remember colonialism, and I'm like, when was it abolished? So at the same time, I do think that we need to be also try not to forget how diverse we are and what makes us what we are. And it's more diverse than what the Western world makes it out to be,
But I think that's part of the problem that you see that's happening. It's what was mentioned before about telling the Black story, the showing our narrative from our side. You're Ghanaian, I'm half Nigerian. There's a myriad of cultures in just our two countries alone. There's more than 800 languages in Nigeria. There is more than 800 different ways of celebrating a wedding or a funeral, of different foods. It's a part of the Black narrative that I'm missing when we're talking about representing Blackness, when we're talking about conversations of race in Holland. I think what you said before as well is so accurate. It's not just white and Black. There is so much depth to this Blackness that people then speak of. There's so much culture to it. And I think the more we show that, the more stories we tell about that, the more we talk about Black women who, as far as I can tell, are constantly being ignored in the many stories that we come across. The more you educate not just ourselves, but also the people on the other side of the line, so to say. And I hope that education fosters understanding and brings people closer together. So I think it's something that definitely needs to be spoken about more.
I had a conversation about this when I was teaching a class actually this afternoon, where it's a master for visual arts, and one of the students is a young Black woman who said, well, I don't know if I can actually call myself a Black artist because I wasn't raised Black. I'm not culturally Black, so can I actually own the term Black? So does she have a right to this? And I said, well, but with that question, you're already complexifying this notion of what Blackness is. What do you think yourself that you are, who you are? But I think it's also, I mean, we can own our own Blackness for if we feel comfortable with that term. But I do very much, I think, see also how Blackness is very contextualized, right? And so if we look at, for instance, how Black folks located in Europe are quite fed up with the hegemony of African American Blackness, right? This cultural hegemony of who are we as Africans or as Black people or however we want to call ourselves in a European space. Have you come across this? Because I've heard many people being very, very upset about that.
I think it's more of the, I think it's also with the language that, you know, the thing is that whether we like it or not, America is very dominating on the world, and it's kind of like writing how the world should look like, and everyone is going along with it. And I do think that, therefore, it's like, therefore you are seeing a lot of people who are not feeling represented, voices that are shut out, you know, like you mentioned, you know, Black women voices, but we also see with Black, queer, and trans people who are like, you know, for me, growing up in a Black community with only Black people in a Black country in Ghana, you know, there was no such a talk of that kind of diversity, you know. So it's kind of like whoever rules decides what it is. And I think that moving ahead, we should try to get a complete story of who we are, and getting that it means that we really need to also create spaces, that we also need to give spaces away. But it's kind of like what we are asking from the white people. At the end of the day, we need to ask ourselves for ourselves, you know, how we're going to deal with it. But I do feel like it is that we should, I'm more focused on Blackness than on whiteness. And the only reason I'm dealing with the movement that we have here against the institution, which is not even against per se whiteness, because at the end of the day, I don't want to be in the position that white people are in now, because I don't see, if I'm in that position, what changes I'm making. You know, my equality is not adjust to the place that white people are in this world, because I do feel like it's very unhealthy. It's a space that is really creating a lot of troubles. So I want to go beyond that, or I want to go somewhere else where it might be more peaceful and might be more humane. So that's how I'm looking at it. But I do think that Blackness is something that has so much to give to the world and to give to us, you know. And I feel like we really need to try to explore what is unexplored, you know, because I do feel like, you know, even the Europeans came to explore, they came to explore and find themselves. They didn't really explore Blackness. Otherwise, there will be a whole different way of looking at what Blackness should be.
Can I just jump in? I mean, I think this, we always fall into this danger of like, Europe versus America versus Africa. I think this is sheer nonsense. There's one enemy, and it is capital. You know, it's power. And that Americans are imperialists and all leads in the cultural wars, that's not their fault. You know, I mean, you know, it's really not their African Americans I'm talking about. I think it behooves us all to talk individually about the work that we do, the aesthetics that we are wrestling with, and bring it back to that, because it's, you know, it's too easy to get lost in the political talk. We need to put our mouths where the vision is. What is the vision? You know, we know we have to wrestle this power imbalance because we don't have the capital. So you can, you know, I could describe Blackness as, you know, not having that, the financial wherewithal, you know, to, you know, as you say, create our own markets, create our own systems in which we consume our own work. So until and unless we create these spaces where we consume our own work, we have to deal with capital. Capital equals whiteness. So the rest of it is just really a lot of noise. It's a lot of noise. And so if someone is saying they haven't been raised Black, but their skin is Black, well, they're gonna have a come to Jesus moment where they realize it doesn't matter what they do. You walk into a room and you're Black. That's it. You cannot change that. So I would say the best advice is for this student to get on with it and start discovering who they are and why they would have always this projection of who they are thrown back at them, right? So our problem is, you know, capital. It's really simple. I mean, the geographical differences are what they are, but they also give us a lot of strength, a lot of, you know, biodiversity. And I think the entanglement that Jay was also suggesting was deeper with nature. If we think about this Anthropocene, you know, the age where man is in control of nature. Well, it's all coming to an end in 50 years, if you believe what they say. So that's the entanglement that is absolutely crucial. You know, if we can't fix this, then there's going to be nothing to talk about.
Mm-hmm. Well, we've talked about, so Jay, you talked about coloniality, COVID, and climate being sort of entangled also as well, maybe political, our political agenda that we should address also, and the intersections of those three very, well, moments that we are living in. So I want to actually move also to how to tackle that, and so how to live, well, create better lives for ourselves, being in that moment, right? Of being caught up in a way whilst having aspirations. So what does that mean in terms of your art practices, but also your political work or your activism? I think these are all things that we all are working on right now. So because we also want to hear some good practices. How is it that you tackle this then, very simply in your daily work as curators, as artists, as activists? How do you do it, Jeffrey?
I think there's...
How do you keep sane with your work?
Oh, sane, I don't.
Oh, okay.
There's
Fair
moments
enough.
where you
Fair
lose
enough.
it. I think that 2020 has been the biggest challenge of sanity for me in a long time. But I think I'm lucky in the sense that I have an art that helps me. As much as it helps me put out a message, it also helps me process a lot. So I can always fall back on my art to say, okay, where's my sanity? Okay, this is where it is. And what do I want to now put out back into the world? For me, it starts, so there's several things or things I like to touch on with my art. And it's talking about the underrepresented story. If you're talking about a better world or a better life, you need to be able to imagine that story and tell that story, but you also need to be able to show what's going on to people who don't know what's going on, who aren't experiencing it, who aren't exposed with it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something I find very crucial to what I do is after you come to a performance of mine, you no longer have the excuse of I didn't know. I didn't hear it. I haven't crossed that path yet. And I hope in that, I've said it before, to create always a sense of understanding. My art isn't very segregational. It doesn't create, hopefully, an I versus you, which at some points, there's space for that and it should be there, but it's something I've chosen not to do. But it creates more a look at me as a human, listen to what I have experienced and what it does with me, and then draw your own conclusions. You can do with it what you want. And then that's where I come from, I guess, with my art.
Yeah. So your mode of expression is spoken word mostly, right? You've won a prize for that as well. I've heard people say you're one of the best in town. Even so, I was like, well, maybe we should hear a little bit from you. So would you be inclined to maybe do a little performance for us?
Yes.
Is it?
Yes.
That would be cool.
I had a hard time figuring out what I was going to do because...
I just asked this just before, so he's a little unprepared. But
and originally I wanted to do a poem about pride, specifically a poem I wrote about me being Nigerian and going to Pride in Europe. But then I was watching the video just now and it made me think of a poem I wrote about my grandmother's funeral. And I think one of the stories of Africa that isn't told is the joy that we find in Africa, mostly in the very unique places that you find it, and in a very, Dutch world, as we live in this country. There's beauty in places that Dutch people would never imagine that it is, and my grandmother's funeral was one of them. She's from Nigeria, and was buried not too long ago. So I'm going to see if I can remember this poem, because my phone is over there and I don't have my text with me. Mama ufoma. When my grandmother passed away, all parts of the family came together in support. I watched how her children gathered at the center of the village and marched and chanted and sung to the borders and greeted all of the others. I watched how my aunt greeted her husband, not running the moment they saw each other, but instead sticking to the rhythm and practicing all restraint of the beats. I watched how they danced, chanted, and sung, how two masses merged into one, my aunt and uncle swirling at the center, the pitter-patter of their feet, slowly asking the dead to rise and welcome their new edition. Mama ufoma. They're not wearing black. Their clothes aren't plain. Instead, each group of the family came with their own explosion of color. My aunts and uncles, they wore the brightest blue of the ocean, as if laced with white details, as if to say, here is all the blue of my tears. Here is all the blue of the ocean that spread as vastly as your life. May its salt taste the same. As bitter as your passing, but as bright as your smile. Her husband and his family were gold, looked as rich as life itself, as rich as 200 people gathered in a mass of colors, tapping the same song, singing the same tune, and rapping the same rhythm. At a funeral, we are all one. We hold each other's hands and dance, we laugh and sing and cry. Mind you, we are sad. But it's only for our own passing. Because for the dead you smile. For the dead, you honor by celebrating their life. For the dead, you travel 3 days to merge into a rainbow of beauty that I missed out on. So take this as my ode. Take this as my apology. Take this as the tears I didn't shed there. Take this as the singing and the dancing and the celebration that I missed out on. Take this as my clap. Accept this black as my color and know that even though I'm 7,000 kilometers away, I will still sing and dance and laugh and cry as if I'm standing right next to you.
Wow. That's amazing. Thank you. That was beautiful. How was it to do that, by the way? How was it to...
I had to grab for my text at some point, but it went okay.
Okay. So Jerry, you also, when we met, you were a poet. You still are a poet. Hopefully, I haven't seen you perform of late, but you've sort of When we first met, I have to tell this to the audience, together with Quincy Gario. It was 2011, and you were taking on this
adventure.
this figure of Dutch blackface called Black Pete. Many moons have passed, and many cities are now saying we're not doing a blackface tradition anymore in our town. So I think, you've come a long way. You've had a lot of, threats because of it, even death threats. It's not been an easy road. Obviously, also because of your specific position as a black man here in the Netherlands. But you've kind of, it seems like you've moved a little bit from being poet to being an educator and an activist and a public speaker, and so what happened? How did that go? And how do you relate back to your art and how is that entangled?
Yeah, I do think that first of all, I want to address that there's no such thing as one black voice, So for us sitting here and the people on the stream, live stream, I do think that we all have idea what will work, and I do think that when it comes to me, I have my own idea, and I do think that's what we are fighting for, to have that specific idea for sometimes also critical thinking. And when we all become critical thinkers, we will not be managed to say the same thing or do the same thing, but maybe fortunately, we are fighting one giant enemy, to say it that way, that it takes a lot of different weapons and preparations and processes to really get through it. For me, what I've been doing is, I think that my being a poet has helped me a lot to find the words that's needed to say at the right time, to really get true people what we are facing. And also, like, the speeches I write, sometimes if you really look close to it, sometimes I write speeches, people say it's poem, because the way I write it. And of course, I would like to continue it, but it feels like duty call. We only could get ahead where we are because we had to, we had to make some sacrifices, like not seeing your children for some time, or coming home, only seeing them in bed, and when they are leaving, you already left doing these things. But at the same time, what I've seen is that I have come to become equipped with a lot of things that I had to learn along the way. And one of the things is that when I started, my focus, was not just as broad to look at the community in all its diversity, And when looking at that way, I also find a lot of strength coming from different angles, like I said, so what we're trying to do is, and also when we started, there was a gap between us and the generation before us who fought very hard and done a lot, but it missed me, if I speak personally. And now we are also coming at a crossroad that we feel like there's a lot of young people who really ready to take over. And now we are thinking, okay, how do we make sure that we don't have a gap, that they can really take it over like a marathon, But to do that, I think that without sacrifices, everything we do, we have to sacrifice. Whether you go to job, maybe you would like to sleep longer, maybe you would like to watch your favorite Netflix TV show, but at the same time, you leave it to go to work to make a living of yourself. And also, when you want real changes, like fighting for your humanity, you have to be willing to make some sacrifices. That's why a lot of things that I've been through, and a lot of people been through, for us to get from 10 years where there was not a single place in the Netherlands where you could say there's no Zwarte Piet, especially at the parade, where now we have like more than 40 places. It's still 10 years too long, but at the same time, it shows to the young people, my brothers and sisters who is coming up to see that change is possible. But yes, you have to go through so many things, and what we are learning, we're trying to pass it down to them so they don't have to make the same mistakes. But at the same time, we don't want to tell them how to do it. We want them to be just as free and to have their own mind in the process.
Yeah. So the importance. Did you want to?
Oh yeah, I think what you said at the start is so important. Is that concept of there is no one way. There's this beautiful spectrum of activism and of making change that goes from, the conversations that I see little young kids of color have with their friends to standing on a stage and putting it in people's face. And that full spectrum, I think, is necessary. And I think everyone that is somewhere on there needs to know, keep going. That is what we need. It doesn't matter how small or how big or how loud or how much of an audience you get, because there's people trying to make changes that don't get any attention, that don't have an audience. Keep doing that. And I think that's, you touched on it, and I just wanted to say yes.
Yeah, we started with 3 people. We started with 3 people, we started with 3 people, and that's the same thing I tell people. All changes that we have seen in society started with a few people. We talk about women rights, voting rights, and everything. If you look into history, how many of them started? Yeah. It's always those big changes started always with a small group of people who feel strengthened by the group they are part of. Because when we started, we knew that a lot of black people didn't like it, but also having a lot of black people at the front was something else. Yeah. And all these things that's going through, like your emotions, your healthy, your family, most of the time I feel strong, but then I look at my family who are worried, so it's kind of like you're going through a lot of, it's kind of like entanglements, kind of like, to me, it's like different emotions and vibes going through, but at the same time, I do think that there's enough to live for, there's enough to keep moving forward, and I'm not afraid that black people will not get to the place we're supposed to be, because I feel like we've been there before, so we will definitely be there again. But at the same time, I feel like, my focus has always been blackness. It started with being focused with Ghana, but being here in this country and seeing so many black children, I'm not talking about men, women, adults, children saying, I do not belong and I don't care at the age of 80 years old.
Yeah, they've given up already.
They've given up already. Yeah. Someone really convinced them that they don't belong, and not far from home, sometimes even their own parents. And I feel like, we need to show these children that they matter. And I'm happy to see that those children are now 21 years old, 23 years old, and who are saying, I matter, and I'm going to do whatever it takes to reach my goals. And I hope, if you ask me, I hope they don't have to become activists, but they can become so much more. That maybe they are unexplored that need to be explored.
But I remember 2 years ago, Angela Davis was here, the iconic activist of long-term activist. She used a whole hour to talk about the joy of activism. And I really love that, because it's always seen as a struggle, as something difficult. And there's a lot of energy you can get from activism, actually. I think that's also maybe important to stress, because in the Netherlands, activism is always like, oh my God, activism. And then you cannot be a scholar anymore, or you cannot be this, or you cannot be this. Yeah, well.
It is sexy from a distance, but we go through a lot. We go through a lot. We go through a lot. So
I wonder if we can interject from the
you
other
totally
planets.
Can.
So,
you totally
guys
can.
Are getting very inward looking here.
Okay.
If you can include some of us who are not in Amsterdam or the Netherlands,
Please weigh in.
I wonder if that's possible.
Go ahead. You have the floor, ma'am.
Yeah, but to live in the black skin doesn't mean you live every day angry or without joy.
Nobody's saying that.
Activism is not different from waking up every day.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So so to try and parse out these things as if they are not one thing is kind of belittling who we are as black people. So of course we are joyful. But I think what's important, since we don't know, or at least I don't know the work of these 2 brothers sitting there, I can't really, be invested because I don't know the work. I think it may be helpful for us to kind of maybe discuss what we were trying to do from Cape Town or from Brooklyn to kind of invade this digital space, right? Like I thought that's what the conversation was really going to be about, because I'm sorry, nobody sent me notes about what you'll do or who you are.
Okay, but we did see your work, so we're trying to tie in all types of voices and types of work here also, of course. Jay, did you want to maybe weigh in on some of the things that have been said already?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think what's what we're alluding to is really this multiplicity of our place in this in these moments of catastrophe that I feel like we do need to speak in these languages of extremity, just because we have to be reminded of why are there such large comorbidities in people of color throughout the world that is suddenly being foregrounded in this time of COVID? Mm-hmm. That there is a space of crisis, and we are waking up to that every single day. Mm-hmm. And I think that what we're alluding to, and what has been really refreshing in the conversation, has been just how nuanced these different approaches are. And that we do find other, we're incredibly innovative as activists, and I must agree that we're not joyless and we're not unsexy as activists and activist artists. I think it's inimical to, if you're living your truth, the sexiness is in that, and the joy is in that. Exactly. And that it is not all dire. But I guess I'm just trying to say that the complexities and the nuances of an entanglement, even within ourselves and in our own works, is definitely becoming apparent. I think what again, I don't want to talk to Nora, but I think that this digital space is also quite difficult, and quite it implies yet another set of frames, another set of mind jumps that we need to get to. I mean, it was so interesting because I had a little bit of a reaction when I saw three of you not wearing masks. I was like, it was suddenly like, you are in that space, and there is a particular languaging going on there, and I'm here and I'm locked down, and as soon as I walk out the door, I have to wear a mask, and we are constantly needing to remake ourselves, and there's a lot of effort and a lot of energy in that, and it is also quite difficult.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thank you both. And I also promised the room here in Amsterdam to check with you if you have questions or remarks that you wanted to bring forward. And I'm looking around, and people are like, no, we're good. Yeah? You're good? Okay. All right. Well, okay, we have to kind of then go to our last bit, because, and for me, let's start with Brooklyn, and I want to ask everyone to talk a little bit about that then. So for you in your practices, what is next? Having sort of, set the tone in terms of, for instance, COVID is not running away very soon. It's becoming more of a long-term reality, if you will. I mean, everyone in the Netherlands was like, in spring, it'll be gone in autumn and we're good to go. Now we're at a different place. We're in it for the long haul. Some of us have been really heavily invested in Black Lives Matters types of activities, that's also something that we're in for the long haul, I think. There's definitely been a paradigm shift of sorts across the globe, maybe even. So there's things that we need to be in for the long haul. What does that mean for your practice? And I'm going to start with Nora in Brooklyn. How is that for you? Also as a sort of in closing of this panel.
Well, I think the work, another Township Manifesto, is kind of proof positive that we can rise up to the occasion and shift gears in mid-air, just like Air Jordan. That I like that image. Learn new skills on the fly, that we are absolutely willing and able. And what we need is to invest in knowledge sharing and in this and connect with each other wherever possible and however possible and by all means necessary. So without Jay's curation or impetus to, the invitation to let's think about this new space, of course I wouldn't have been able to make the work. But so, the entanglement is that those who are either teachers or curators or professors have access, have platforms through which they can bring others to keep this conversation alive. We are thinkers. We are evidently talented. So we're not giving up even as we die each day. It's obvious we're going to be dying every day, but that doesn't mean we are giving up or unable to make work in new spaces. So what this continued space of COVID-19 asks me to do is to continually invest in this digital space and understand how it works, how it differs from a live space. How do we translate liveness into the digital space? I think that is super, super important, and not just do video captures of anybody dancing. And I think, that's what we were trying to do. And I think we did it with another Township Manifesto and with all the comrades who worked on it. And, so it's going to be more of the same, more deep dives, and we just don't give up.
Lovely. Thank you for that. Amazing. Jeffrey.
Ooh.
Briefly,
okay.
Very briefly. And
as briefly as possible. So either way, what I've seen, and I think it's beautiful and it shows the resilience of art, is that poetry, especially spoken word, has always been live performance, has almost seamlessly transitioned into digital experiences. So I was at the queer BIPOC Feminist Awards the other day, and they were organized mainly as a digital platform rather than just a live space. So I think that's the space that we'll be moving into more and more. I think not stopping with what you're doing, so finding a new way of getting your voice out there. And I've been really lucky and been given a lot of chances to represent myself and to come with my stories. And I think right now I'm more at the point where I'm trying to find ways of giving other people that same voice and sharing that space and creating that space. I mean, if it's not there, then let's make it.
Absolutely. Jerry.
Yeah, as now we are formulating the next step in anti-racism movement in the Netherlands. And we hope soon to present it and to move from there. And as far as going digital, we didn't really find problem with it. We adjust to it quickly because the whole movement offline, we couldn't really get through the population, and we had to use online platforms to get through it. And also, we are exempt from all rules when we are protesting, But as far as when it comes to art, as I look around me, people are kind of becoming more flexible and seeing like, okay, you always have to have plan B. I think that now is officially, we are living in a parallel universe with offline and online, you know, and I think if you can adjust to it, those people will survive.
Yeah, thanks. Jay, last but certainly not least.
I think these wonderful artists have spoken. Thank you.
Okay. I want to thank all of the panelists, Nora in Brooklyn, Jay in Cape Town, Jerry, Jeffrey here in Amsterdam. Thanks so much for your thoughts, your words, your wisdom, and your power. And keep at it. Thanks so much. Big round.
Thank you.
Okay, and while you can move back to your seats, I would like to introduce to you a wonderful woman that I've gotten to know, I think 6 years ago. She performed at a book presentation that I co-authored, and I'm very happy that I can introduce you to her again. This is Eve Skeet McLeod.
Ding 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 ding. I stand in the way, feeling the time pass by, held down by the weight, while I long for the light. How I long for light. I'm tired of questions. Do I know where I'm going? Lies and deceptions. Yes, I know where I'm going. But I just wanna float down on waves on the Atlantic so my soul can breathe. While I'm held down by the wave, I talk to Gaia so my soul can breathe. I talk to Gaia so my soul can breathe. So my soul can breathe. Voices, feelings, creativity's lost its meaning. I'm singing voices and these feelings, creativity's lost its meaning. Do you know where you're going? 'Cause I know where I'm going. Do you see where you're going? 'Cause I feel where I'm going. I'm supposed to be healing. Still, I could break all the time. I'm trying this healing, still I break. Yes, I break all the time. I can't find my way back. I am held back. I think you broke my compass in the tide. I can't find my way back. I'm feeling held back. I think I broke my compass with the tide. So let me float down in my waves of the Atlantic so my soul can breathe. Connected by elements in ways. So I talk to Gaia so my soul can breathe. Flow down in the waves of the Atlantic so my soul can breathe. I talk to Gaia.
Wow, thank you so much, Eve Skeet McLeod, singer. Now, I usually do it like that, but now I had to think for a minute. In Dutch, Eva Skeet McLeod, singer-songwriter. She wrote this song especially for this night, so thank you for that. That's really, really great that you did that. She has a solo performance, Table for One, that will be with Festival right about now, shortly. I think is it next month? Next month. So that brings us to almost the end of this live cast here in the Balie and Live program with audience. Thanks everyone for being here. We're going to finalize this program with 2 short films, 2 wonderful filmmakers who were also invited by Nora to show their work here. She invited Chuma Sopotole and Dorothy Munyaneza to also create a performance in reaction to the artist Feni. And these films will be screened right after this. But for now, I'm going to say good night to you all from live from the Balie. Thanks for watching, and see you next time here at Afro Vibes. Bye.